For today's quick tutorial, we'll be talking about the inverse square law and how it affects you when you're taking your photographs. For photographers, it has to do with the light quantity when you double the distance from your subject to your light source. If I double the distance from my subject to my light source from 1 foot to 2 feet, I'll only receive a quarter of the amount of light. Let's put this into practice. In this example, you can clearly see how light falls off. We have our light source over to my left, and we have indicators at 1 foot, 2 feet, 4 feet, and I don't know if you can barely see that, but we do have an indicator at 8 feet. Over this spread, we're starting to lose power, and it's called light fall off. Going back to the inverse square law, we know that if we have full power at 1 foot, if we double the distance, at this point, we're only going to receive a quarter of the amount of light. If we double that distance yet again, from this point, at 4 feet, it will be quarter of the amount from this point at 2 feet. Mathematically, we can determine how much power we're getting. 1 times 1 equals 1. That's full power. 2 times 2, because that's the distance, is 4. That becomes your denominator, so 1 over 4. At 4 feet, it would be 4 times 4, which is equal to 16, so that's 1/16th power. And 8 times 8 is 64, so it becomes 1/64th power. This illustration shows you percentages and fractions of light fall off. The greatest fall off of light is between 1 and 2 feet, being 75%. At 1 foot, you're receiving full power. At 2 feet, you're only receiving 25%. As you move farther away from the light source, the light fall off percentage decreases. Knowing how these fractions and percentages work, that will allow you to be able to control your background. Let's put this into perspective. I had my friend John come by the studio earlier this week so I could photograph him for this demonstration. While I don't want you to get caught up with the numbers, I wanted to tell you what my settings were for these images. We started off at 3200 ISO with an aperture of 3.5. This very first image was photographed at 1/8,000th of a second for my shutter speed. John was 1 foot away from the light source, meaning it was full power. As I had him move away exactly to 2 feet, I had to compensate for the loss of light. My shutter speed went to 2,000ths of a second. And we're going to get into what stops are later on, but that's exactly 2 stops slower shutter speed. For this third image, this was photographed at 1/500th of a second. Again, allowing that loss of light to come in by 2 full stops. The final image was photographed at 1/125th of a second. Again, 2 full stops of light more. You'll notice that the biggest difference between these 4 photographs is the background. While John's exposure on his face stays the same, the background changes depending on how far away he is from the light source. The closer he is to the light source, the darker the background. The farther away he is from the light source, the lighter the background, and that's because of light fall off. The inverse square law only applies to artificial light, meaning as soon as you reshape it or you're using artificial light, that's when this rule will apply. If you're outside in natural daylight on a bright sunny day, this rule does not work in regards to the sun. We're millions of miles away from the sun, so we are at its lowest percent for light fall off, meaning you can photograph someone here or in China and there is no light fall off because we're in that zone of 1% or less. Until next time, happy shooting.